Good morning and welcome to the Exposing Deception program. I'm your host, Brian Delory, and I thank you all for tuning into the program this morning. And on today's program, I'm going to be discussing the police killings in Dallas, Texas. I believe they took place on Thursday evening, I believe it was. 5 police officers were killed. Everyone knows the story. But I want to talk about that. As you know, this was all taking place. This all took place rather during a Black Lives Matter protest march, and by all accounts, the march was basically peaceful. And then suddenly, shots began ringing out, and at the end of the shooting, 5 police officers were killed, 7 wounded, and I think 2 civilians were wounded as well. And so this was just a horrible situation, a horrible tragedy, which should never have happened. First of all, I consider the Black Lives Matter movement a terrorist organization. They're being funded by George Soros. They're being allowed to operate freely in this country by Barack Hussein Obama, and they are being used for the purpose of destabilizing our country and intimidating the police and trying to basically reform police policies. And they're also being actually, I believe they're being used because eventually they're going to be the police office. The police departments around the country are eventually going to be federalized if the liberals have their way about it. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen, but I believe that this is what this is all heading towards. Whether it happens or not remains to be seen, and we should remain prayerful about this, and we should do everything we can in our power, which really comes down to how we vote, to not allow this to occur. Now, the Black Lives Matter spokesmoron, Jeff Hood, was on Fox News, he was on the news, and it was being broadcast on Fox News. And, he was talking about how it was a peaceful march, and, when suddenly shots began to ring out. And he tried to give the impression that, he's all for peace and that this is about unity and it's not about hatred towards cops and this type of thing. But I have to tell you, if you will read some of Mr. Hood's tweets, you will quickly see that he is anything but a peaceful man, and that he uses a lot of hateful rhetoric in his tweets, and so he's doing the best he can to fan the flames of racism in this country, and that's just the end of that. So that's the first thing that we have to be concerned about, that this Black Lives Matter movement, I believe, should be shut down. I don't believe it should be allowed to continue. Obviously, it's causing a lot of problems, and now, in my opinion, the movement has been discredited. Now, you say, well, it wasn't a Black Lives Matter person who did the shootings. It was someone who was outside of the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't believe that. In fact, if you will study this out, if you will read the newspapers, you will not find it posted anywhere in the newspaper the route the parade was supposed to take, or not the parade. I keep saying parade, march. The march, the parade was. Okay, said it again. The route the march was supposed to take, and so if that's the case, then how did the gunman know which building to be on top of when he started shooting at the police? There, I believe, had to be some sort of communication between the gunman and someone uh, at the head or at the top of the Black Lives Matter organization. And that's just my opinion, but if you look at the facts uh, as they are, it just doesn't make any sense. That how would the gunman know what building to be on at that exact moment unless he knew the route of the parade? Now, I said it again, unless he knew the route of the march. And he could only know the route of the march uh, unless if someone gave him that information. Now, by the way, the march was announced only 27 hours before it took place. So this is something to think about. Now, the reason for the march was the 2 police killings that occurred last week. One was Alton Sperling, and the other one was Philando Castile. Alton Sperling was killed by the police in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Alton Sperling was killed by the police in Minnesota. I have watched the shooting of Alton Sperling by the police in Baton Rouge, and I have come to the conclusion that Alton Sperling deserved what he got. He was a reputed gang member. He was a pedophile. Now, he fathered a baby with the woman he actually, I won't say he didn't molest her, but she was underage when he had sex with her. She was 14 and he was 20. And so he had sex with her and impregnated her, and she had a daughter. And yes, it's true that they remained friends and they co-parented the daughter, but he was still brought up on charges for that crime. He was also arrested several times for domestic abuse, and he was a felon, a convicted felon, and so he had no business carrying a gun. Now, someone said, I saw it somewhere, that he began carrying a gun after he was mugged. And in the early morning hours of July 5th, he was approached by a homeless man and asked if he had any spare change. Now, I'm only telling you what I read. And he became irate with the homeless man. And according to the homeless man, he brandished a gun. So the homeless man called the police. So that's why the police were called out to this area. Now, we're all being told that he was a father of 5 children, and he sold CDs out in front of this convenience store for years. And that may be true, but they try to make him look as though he's just this innocent person who did nothing wrong, and he was just shot execution style by the police, which is nothing close to the truth. If you watch that video, the police talk to him. You know, when the police come to talk to you, you follow their commands. You do what they say. Apparently, Mr. Sperling did not do this. They tased him, and that still didn't have much of an effect, so they took him to the ground, and it was at that point that I guess he put his hand on the gun, because it's unclear from the video of exactly what happened. And, of course, we all know that he was subsequently shot, apparently because he wouldn't let go of the gun. There was a gun found on him. Now, all the facts have not been made public. We don't know everything about the case, but it certainly, in my estimation, at this point, knowing this guy's background, looks like a justified killing. But of course, I don't know that for certain, and I'm sure that the facts will come out, and I'm pretty sure that the facts are going to come out on the side of the police, and they're going to be eventually exonerated. Now, in the Philando Castile case, it's not quite so easy. Castile was a good man, and now I'll qualify that in just a second, but he worked a job. I mean, he was a high school graduate. He was not affiliated with any gangs. He had this job at this school in the cafeteria where he was just promoted to supervisor a couple years ago. He was well liked by his peers. He was loved by the children there. And by all accounts, he was a good person. That he had some problems with paying traffic fines. It seems he had a flagrant disregard for traffic laws, but that's about the worst of it. And he was returning home with his girlfriend on July 6th when they were stopped by the police. According to the story his girlfriend is telling, he told the policeman, I'm armed and I'm licensed to carry. And when he went to reach for his ID, the police officer shot him in the arm several times, and he bled to death in the car. I personally feel that is not going to bode well for those police officers unless there's some extenuating circumstance that we've not yet been told about. I can't understand why, if the man is telling you that I'm armed and I have to reach for my wallet, why you would shoot him. Now, I'm a little bit disturbed by the fact that his girlfriend, instead of rendering aid or being inconsolable or something, she thought, the first thing she thought of was to post this on Facebook, his dying moments on Facebook. I believe she had an agenda and a reason for doing that. And it wasn't because, she just wanted to post this and for everyone to see. She knew that she was going to be going after the police department, and she wanted this broadcast on social media. I can imagine if my girlfriend were shot and she was slumped over next to me dying, I would be absolutely panicked. And the girl was panicked. You could see she was a little bit upset. She had a daughter in the back seat, but she still maintained her composure long enough to broadcast his dying moments on Facebook. It was a horrible thing to see, and I wasn't happy to see it. I mean, but at the same time, I have some issues with Mr. Castile, which in the last hour and a half, came across some reasons why I feel this way. First of all, Mr. Castile was a sympathizer with the Black Panthers. He said that on, I believe, either his Twitter or Facebook. I don't remember which one, but he used the slogan, "by any means necessary." Just hours before he was killed, his sister posted something on, I don't know, again, whether it was Facebook or Twitter, about the Alton Sperling killing, and basically you get the idea that these people had bought into the narrative being perpetuated by the news media that the police are out killing black people. And the day after he was shot, there was some type of meeting in front of the governor's mansion, and his girlfriend said that very thing, that they're being attacked by the police because they're black. Now, I have something to say about Governor Mark Dayton. I believe Mark Dayton should either resign or be recalled by the people of Minnesota, because he's made a very damaging statement about the police department that he should never have made, because the facts have all the facts have not been made clear about this case. And he said the following, and I quote, "I do not believe that these people were white, that they would have been stopped." So in other words, he is accusing the police officers involved in this shooting of being racist before any of the facts come out. And if you watch him in front of this, at this meeting in front of his mansion, taking a tongue lashing from some illiterate gangbanger, and his body language, tells you that he's frightened by this people. This is what they want. This is what the Black Lives Matter thing is all about, fear and intimidation. And so this Mark Dayton was clearly intimidated. All you have to do is watch that video, and you can see by his body language that he's frightened of this piece of garbage that's giving him this tongue lashing and disrespecting him in front of everybody. He should never have taken that. He should never have apologized for anything. He apologized, and then he made that statement about his own police officers, and that should never have happened. And in my opinion, he should either resign or be recalled. Now, that will probably not happen, but that's what I believe should happen. And of course, there's so many other things taking place throughout the world. And by the way, there's something else that results from this shooting. Remember, Hillary Clinton it was recommended by James Comey, I believe, Wednesday, that she should not be indicted for the emails, which was a stupid decision. And clearly, she was just given a pass because somebody is protecting her. Just that simple. Because every attorney who has half a brain says she violated the security. What is it? I can't think of the name. National security by posting those emails on an unprotected server and all these other things. And now that's been completely wiped off the front page. That was front page news until this killing in Dallas. Now, I told you at the beginning of this, I believe that these groups are being funded by George Soros, and Barack Obama is allowing them on the orders of George Soros and whoever else to allow them to operate freely in this country. And I believe Soros could have set up the whole thing to wipe off the Hillary Clinton scandal off the front page, because everybody's now focused on the police officers in Dallas, which, of course, you have to have some sympathy for those police officers, and I pray for their families. I pray that God brings peace and healing to that state. I mean, I have a friend who has a son who lives in Dallas. It's a terrible situation out there right now. And the bottom line is this, that I believe there are powers that be who are manipulating world events for a particular outcome. And I believe, this is what I believe, everyone can see that it's very, very possible. It's highly likely that Donald Trump will be elected come November. So the best way to prevent that from happening is to not allow the elections to take place. And so I believe what is now happening is that Barack Obama is, and through the funding of George Soros and others, and there's of course a lot of other people involved, is doing his best to fan the flames of racism here in the United States, and he is hoping that race riots will begin to occur, and when that happens, he will declare martial law, and that will give him the right to suspend all elections, and he will remain president of the United States indefinitely, and he'll take that opportunity to finish the job that he started to destroy this country. Now, hopefully, God does not let that happen, but I believe that is at least what is behind a lot of what is now happening in our country with these Black Lives Matter movement marches and all these other things that are going on. And now, of course, as a result of the shootings of these two men last week, now the police departments around the country have been threatened by someone. I believe it's from Black Lives Matter or somebody, that they're going to start shooting police officers. And we've already had 2 incidents where policemen were shot and wounded. One policeman was called to a home because the caller said that the home was being broken into. And when he got there, he was ambushed by the caller and shot. Fortunately, he survived. There was another that I believe was in Georgia, but I'm not sure about that. I don't know where the other one was, but that police officer survived. So these are very, very trying times for our police officers, and we need to be in prayer for them. But everything I said to you so far is I believe, absolutely true. And I believe unless God intervenes, we are headed into some dark days in this country. And by the way, uh, I happened to mention this sometime at the beginning of the year. I said I believe for the first 6 months or so of 2016, everything would be kind of normal. There would be problems, but not anything too drastic. And then towards the end, as we approached the time of the election, things would begin to heat up. And that is exactly what is now happening. And so I would urge you all to be in prayer for our police officers, for our country. And I pray that God intervenes and thwarts the plans and purposes of George Soros, Barack Obama, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder. Well, he's no longer in office, but he's behind it. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. I pray that God begins to expose these people for what they are and begins to judge these people publicly for what they've done and the hell that they've brought to this nation. And I pray, and you're not going to like what you hear next, but if you're a liberal, you're the ones who have unleashed this hell upon us. And so I think it's only fitting that you're the ones who should suffer first. So if Hillary Clinton is elected president, you can rest assured that it's going to continue business as usual and worse. And there will be ISIS attacks in this country. And I hope that if you're a liberal, I hope that ISIS comes to your knocking on your door first. And I hope they kill you and your family first, because you've allowed this man to be elected, Barack Obama, ISIS has been able to kill people all over the world, and you have that blood on your hands. You were warned, and yet you elected this man anyway. So it's only fitting that you should share in his punishment. You should be judged. That's my views on this, and that's all I had to say. And again, I appeal to all my listeners who love the Lord, who believe in Jesus and believe the Bible, to pray that God will intervene and save this country from what the leftists